Welcome back to another episode of D&D Encounters, brought to you by One Mind Syndicate. Today is a little different. I don't have an exact encounter for you guys. What I have is me ranting about the very important ability as a DM to allow your players to have their own creative ideas within your campaign. And the reason I bring this up, or the reason this is a topic, is because in my current 40k inspired D&D campaign, there's a character where the player's creativity comes into play a lot, or has come into play a lot. And that character is a Tabaxi monk by the name of Zora. It's actually a character that's being played by the Sound Alchemist. She is a Tabaxi, not in that she is half cat, half, or like she's not a cat person, she is a fox person. So right off the bat, the Sound Alchemist wanted to change a very big feature of the Tabaxi, and that is that instead of making them cat, they're foxes. And instead of me saying, no, a Tabaxi is actually a cat person, that's the whole point of the Tabaxi race, I went with it. I said, yeah, of course, you could play a fox person. Do you want any special buffs? And he left that up to me. I think he went online and he pulled up another fox person that has been in one of the supplements for D&D and said, I could either be a Tabaxi or I could be this person. And then I noticed, well, the Tabaxi actually gets more buffs to the character, so just go with the Tabaxi, and then we'll just change it up to say that Tabaxis in my world are just basically anything that is a canine, feline, humanoid. So pretty much everything from gnolls to just regular Tabaxis are considered Tabaxis in my world. They're all just a subset of this grander design. And that was important for, I think, the Sound Alchemist, in that it showed that he has as much creative freedom as the DM. The DM is still the one that's going to end up calling the shot, but at the end of the day, as a DM, you're supposed to understand that the players that sit at your table are playing the game because they want to create a character that's their own. So giving them the ability to choose the race, whatever it is very important. In one of the campaigns that I actually played as a player, the DM gave me a list of races that I could choose from, which, luckily for me, I wanted to play dwarves, and I mean, dwarf was one of those options. But if I wanted to play an Aarakocra, if I wanted to play a Goliath, a Minotaur, anything like that, that was completely against his rules for starting a campaign. And I just don't like that. His excuse was that he only had the player's guide, so he didn't want us to choose a race that he didn't know about because it was outside of the player's guide, which is an okay excuse, especially if you're just going to run a D&D session for the first time. But even then, it's 2019. You can go on Google, search pretty much any race within D&D, even made-up ones, and you can find some information on them. And to deny your players the ability to just make up their own race, it's not in the spirit of what I think D&D is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a game where you sit down and you just use your imagination, and your imagination is supposed to go wild. You don't necessarily have to use what's in those books. Now, there are other people that choose to deny certain races based on the fact that they have buffs or they have abilities that other players don't have that might make challenges obsolete. But that's just, if a DM tells you you can't choose, for instance, an Aarakocra because he has the flying ability, that's just the DM showing the player that he's not creative enough to work around the simple fact of flying. If you are one of those DMs that likes to ban certain things because they provide a easy solution to an encounter that you have created, you could still run that encounter. For instance, if you do have an Aarakocra in your party and your encounter was to reach a high tower for some reason, the Aarakocra reaching that tower and using that flying ability just adds value to the party, or that character adds value to the party the same way that a tank adds the value of being able to absorb a bunch of damage, or the bruiser to deal damage. Having a character with a specific ability, even though it might make a certain encounter easier, don't see that as a negative, see that as a positive to the party, because it's adding value to the party. And what you should do is create encounters where that ability is being utilized. So if you do have a player that can fly, giving them the ability to find items in high places should be something that you should run in most encounters, or in at least some encounters, to give that player the sense of purpose. Like, I am here for a specific reason, and that specific reason is to achieve these feats that the rest of the party can't. And it builds this cohesiveness where it becomes the person becomes valued within the party. And that's really, as a DM, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to get your party to work together and find value from each individual character within the party. And as a DM, there's always ways where you can actually stop a player from using their special ability. So if you did create an encounter and you never thought that a specific feat or a specific feature that a character naturally has was going to make the encounter easier, you could always hinder that ability. For example, if you did create an encounter where flying up and collecting a gem makes the encounter pointless, then hinder the person who has that ability in the first place. There's hundreds of thousands of ways that you can just come up with to stop a person from doing a feat, just because that is your role. You're basically God in D&D, so you can come up with anything. You can say your feathers got wet because of some sap that was growing on some trees, or whatever you may think of. The best example I can remember is last year. We had a friend who ran a D&D session. It was a short campaign, and in the party there was a lot of bird people. There was Kenku, there was Aarakocra, and what would end up happening is that the Aarakocra would always fly up, and it made the party almost immune to getting snuck up on, because they could see people from miles away because they could fly so high. So what the DM did was ask the question, well, how are you going to relay the message that there are people coming your way to the party if you're so high up in the air? The only response was, well, I'm going to scream down, because there's not enough movement to come back down. By that point, the party or the approaching individuals would already be like miles away. But then what that did was it gave away the party's location. By screaming up in the air, the party that's coming towards, or the enemy that's coming towards the party, is going to know exactly where they are based on where the Aarakocra was screaming. So it created this problem that we had to resolve. We never did. What ended up happening is the Aarakocra would fly up, he would spot a problem up ahead, and that's it. It became a funny situation of like, you're kind of like the rogue, but not really, because there's no way for you to let us know what's happening. Another way around flying that the DM found was, so he introduced us to a location where the trees were extremely high up. The canopy was so thick with branches that the flying ability became obsolete for, or became like pointless for the Aarakocra, because he started taking damage from all the branches hitting him, and of course he doesn't want to damage his wings, so it became one of those situations where flying wasn't going to help us out. You could also throw a party into a dungeon, and all of a sudden the flying ability is pointless because there's a ceiling. So basically the point is that if you are preventing a player from choosing a race, or if you're preventing a player from coming up with something that gives them an extra feature that the rest of the party doesn't have, it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, because there's always ways for you as a DM to turn that ability against them. And just to give you guys another example of how you should just allow your players to have their own creative ideas, in my current 40k inspired D&D campaign, Zora, I gave Zora the ability to shapeshift into a fox whenever she pleases. The Sound Alchemist didn't really like that, so what he ended up doing is asking if he can somehow manifest a spiritual essence of a fox and use that as a weapon, or use that spirit as some sort of a manifestation of his ki energy, because Zora is a monk. And at first, it was one of those situations where it's like, well, you're just making your own stuff up. That's not in the book. But going back to the whole idea of like giving your players that creative freedom, I said, yeah, we can do that. We just have to like figure out exactly what this fox spirit does. And we're currently trying to figure out exactly what the spirit is and what it does in terms of like game mechanics. But it's something that as a DM, you have to work with your players when they come up with a creative idea like this. Don't interpret their creativeness as them just trying to get something above other players. Interpret that as by them creating this feature within their character, all of a sudden it gives them that extra incentive to play the game in the first place, because they're creating a character that is their own. It's not something that comes out of the book. It's not something that you are stopping that person from doing. It's just something that you both are working together to form into something that's both beneficial for the party, fun to play, and of their own making. And then what I guarantee you is going to happen is that the other members of the party are going to want to create their own creative special abilities, and I'll be open to whatever they come up with. There's actually one player, the Goliath, he really wants to be a dreadnought, and I want to give him the ability to end up in a dreadnought, because it is a 40k inspired campaign. A giant sarcophagus that holds the decaying body of this Goliath sounds badass, and it's not something that I'm going to find in any of the books, but it is something that I want to give my players, because again, it's that creative freedom that's making the game 10 times more fun than what's originally in the book. But I hope this video helps you in your D&D campaigns, whether you're a player or a DM. Being open to suggestions, being open to creativity is essential in a role-playing game like D&D. And don't take creativity as a negative aspect. Not everybody's trying to, you know, beat the DM or trying to beat the game. They're just there to have fun and make the game their own. And as a DM, you have to remember that even though it's your world, it's a world for your friends. So yeah, I hope that helps, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. This was Gersh1 with One Mind Syndicate, signing out.